Let's go ahead and discuss the age of exploration, particularly European explorers. From a European perspective, our objective for these training session notes is to understand the key figures, motivations, and impacts of the age of exploration with a focus on European explorers and their expeditions. Now, for our introduction to the age of exploration, know that this time period is typically going to be from the 15th to the 17th centuries. The world is going to open up significantly because of the main motivations that these people had. The three G's: gold, glory, and God. So, in particular, wealth is going to be a big one. As far as lucrative trade at the time, it was trying to get to Asia and bringing things back. The Silk Road and other routes like that were becoming increasingly more difficult and had been difficult to start with. They're increasingly getting stopped for things like sort of like tariffs or trade taxes and things like that as they went to go bring things back. The idea was that if they could open a water route to Asia, then you would not have to go through all of this, and it would be a whole lot easier to bring things back. Glory is another one. If you're an explorer from Portugal, you want to bring glory back to your country, partly because it's going to give you more opportunities to continue selling, as well as fame and prestige. And God, or the spread of Christianity, was a big one, particularly as time passed. The impact of this era is that it led to the discovery of new lands, the establishment of trade routes, and significant cultural exchanges, both positive and negative, as we'll get into. Prince Henry the Navigator is the first name that's going to come up. And one of the things you need to know about Prince Henry the Navigator is that he didn't actually personally embark on any of these big voyages. He is known sort of as the father of this European exploration movement. He was instrumental in promoting Portuguese exploration, and he does that by financing a lot of the exploration itself, by putting his money into it in the hopes that it's going to bring return to him. He also opens up this navigation school that's going to train many of the area's leading explorers and cartographers. His explorers or his impact is going to help map much of the West African coast at the time. If we get into our next name with Christopher Columbus, probably the name you're going to see come up the most. His background is that he's an Italian explorer funded by Spain under King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. This sentence right here is probably the one you need to know as far as questions go. This basic information, or King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and that he operated under Spain. He made four voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, leading to the European discovery of the American continents in 1492. This is a little bit of a misnomer because Leif Erikson is actually going to be the person who discovers the New World. It's just he didn't discover it with the same level of popularity or fame that's going to come later for Christopher Columbus, that's going to lead a whole lot of other people to continue this exploration. His significance is that his expeditions open the way for the widespread European exploration and eventual colonization of the Americas. Some key facts: his 1492 voyage was sailed with the ships the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. You also need to know that he didn't initially actually discover the New World even on his trip. He's going to run into, or he didn't discover the North American continent. He ran into the Bahamas and essentially landed in a place that he's going to name San Salvador, which he thought was India at the time because he wasn't really sure where they were at. Everybody who came over at first thought that they were just like trying again to get to Asia. His legacy is that he initiated the Columbian Exchange, which is this widespread transfer of plants, animals, culture, and ideas between the Americas and the Old World. Along with these positives, you're also going to get massive negatives, particularly for the indigenous populations of the areas that explorers are going to come to, such as the transfer of diseases for populations that didn't have any immunity. You're going to have thousands and thousands of people die because of disease. You're also going to have some conquering and subjugation of people that had lived in that area for years and years and years because of these differences as well. So, not the most, a legacy that does have some controversy today. Going into our next name, we're going to move to Vasco da Gama. His background is that he was a Portuguese explorer and the first European to reach India by sea. His voyage in 1498, he sailed around the Cape of Good Hope and reached Calicut, India. The impact there is that he opened up a direct sea route to Asia, enhancing trade routes between Europe and Asia. Know that he sailed around the Cape of Good Hope, which is the southern tip of Africa, and that his trade allowed Portugal to establish a long lasting colonial empire in Asia. Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese explorer who led the first expedition to circumnavigate the globe, though he didn't complete the journey himself. He sailed from Spain with 5 ships to find a westward route to the Spice Islands, or in Indonesia. The expedition was completed by Juan Sebastian Elcano after Magellan's death in the Philippines. Know the term circumnavigation, it proved the world was round and larger than previously thought. And know the Strait of Magellan, the navigable sea route in southern Chile named after Magellan. Some impacts of European exploration. Its establishment of trade routes and colonies leading to the exchange of goods, resources, and wealth. Cultural is the spread of European culture and influence, often at the expense of the indigenous cultures that lived in the areas that are going to be colonized. And technological, some advances in navigation, shipbuilding, and cartography. Our question to wrap up our very brief intro to some of these explorers: although he joined no explorations himself, one European ruler had a huge impact on the explorations of the 15th century. Which of the following promoted Portuguese explorations to Africa during the mid 1400s? Was it Prince Henry the Navigator, King Ferdinand, King Duarte, or Prince Fernando? Take a moment and decide. If you guessed the correct answer of Prince Henry the Navigator, you'd be correct. Prince Henry the Navigator was a key figure in promoting and funding Portuguese exploration of especially the African coast during the 15th century, although he didn't personally participate in those voyages. If you want to pause and look at why these answers were wrong, that might be a good idea as well. That's going to be a brief overview of some of the names that you need to dive deeper into. Thanks, and have a great day.